The release of Dune Awakening has been an absolute roller coaster ride since the beginning. And depending on which side that you fall on, whether it be PvP or PvE or even somewhere in the middle, you've seen two different outcomes develop over the last month and a half. Now, obviously, if you were on the PvP side of this game, you were promised an in-game full of PvP, unwarranted and unrestricted. On the other hand, if you were a PvE player, you were promised an in-game in which you didn't have to necessarily engage in the PvP, and you could still get access to all those various nodes out there in the deep desert. And of course, if you fall somewhere in between the middle, you just found a way to cope and enjoy the game as you were playing through it. However, the one thing that we have to definitely say here is, does the roadmap that they just released truly signify a positive future for Dune? Or is it just another example of a company releasing an incomplete product only to slowly drip feed content to its community to exploit them for their money? Let's scrutinize what is being proposed in this roadmap and see what kind of conclusions we can come to as a group as to whether or not this is good or bad for our future in this game. To begin with, in this roadmap posting that they've given us, we see a distinction between a free and purchasable content. And what I'm referring to from this is a clear focus on more paid content than on the free side, which doesn't really seem to be something Funcom has done in the past, at least with games like Conan. Sure, there has been paid content, but those DLCs are more or less a brand new map, or they are just cosmetic features for like building or the types of armor that you can wear. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm a firm supporter of the game's development, and I genuinely believe Dune is a great game. I just feel that the Chapter 2 section on this has only a smattering of this and that, and I'm not seeing anything that convinces me that a more expansive in-game experience is actually the focus. Now, despite what PvP and PvE players might complain or say is the destruction of Dune Awakening, there's only one really true reason why the majority of people have left this game, and that is the lack of an in-depth in-game loop that is actually making the issues for people and making them want to depart because it's boring. If you are not one of these players who have slowly progressed through the game and are just now getting into the deep desert, you know exactly what I mean. Everyone that I know has quit this game not because they were getting killed over and over again or because there was some other issue. It was more or less because there's no in-game loop. Now, while cosmetics are appealing, new building blocks are enjoyable, and recustomizing your character can be a blast, the vague promise of main story continues doesn't exactly scream in-game for me. In fact, no real storyline exists outside of the Haga Basin and the few instanced overland map locations that are, I assume, considered dungeons. Now, social hub contracts are an interesting addition, but one thing that concerns me is the Lost Harvest DLC list, which includes a new contract chain with unique locations. Does this imply that unless you spend more money just 3 months after purchasing the game, you'll be blocked from a portion of a game's questing content? I'm at a loss here for words because Funcom has not been known for trying quest content behind paywalls before, or at least I can't recall it ever happening with Conan. Of course, I've literally just bought the Conan DLC as soon as it would come out, but I don't remember having friends saying they are being blocked from certain content. They have been blocked from the cosmetics, but that was it. So, keeping this in mind, this is a bit off-putting for my taste, especially if they are trying to attract new players. I suppose we will be occupied by the original storyline long enough to decide whether or not it is worth purchasing this game, or whether the DLC is going to be something that pushes you into that new content paywall. Still, with the scarcity of in-game content outside of the Landsrad, I would rather have seen more imagination poured into the other content that we need, which is more in-game or a more focused in-game loop that is specified for exact audiences such as PvP, PvE, or contested. Now, beyond Chapter 2, there is very little to see. Revamped in-game could mean basically anything. It will be worth staying or returning for. I have no idea, because the only thing I see in the immediate future that offers a real reason to revisit the game outside of content creation is coming in April with what appears to be a new polar map. And I guess that's cool, right? I mean, let's pause here and truly consider what is happening. Look, Funcom set out to create a beautiful game with a great deal of promise. They began with the wrong attitude, one that I still believe they have not corrected regarding what the gaming community as a whole wanted. While PvP and PvE can overlap, you would have been a fool to believe that the vast majority of people playing this game wanted the best of both worlds. As in Conan, separate servers make the most sense, as those with a thirst for blood can choose to join a PvP server. Those who simply want to progress through the game against the engine can join a PvE server, and the overlap can choose some kind of contested server. What we have here is a development team led by people who knew they did not have enough in-game content to sustain the population, so they applied a PvP band-aid to the problem itself, which they soon discovered was only suitable for about a third of the population. I'm not sure how difficult it would have been at that point to simply create a pure PvP or PvE server, but they certainly did not want to do it. Instead, they doubled down, believing that by offering half of the deep desert to the PvE side of the game, everything would be resolved. But this only made that first third of player base quit instantly and left the door open for those holding out to continue PvP as it slowly drifted away from them, with nerfs on ornithopters making things even slower, and then finally the nail in the coffin, which was literally just taking in-game nodes and just spreading them all over the deep desert so everybody could have them. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is bad. I think everyone should play the game the way they want to. If you want to get that Stravinium and Titanium, I believe you should be able to get it however you want, whether that is through PvP or whether it is just you going out there, getting it effortlessly, bringing it back and building your base or whatever else you need to do with it. However, this is not what Funcom set out to do for us from the very beginning. This was because they literally offered approximately 60% of the population a PvP in-game loop in the deep desert. Once it is taken away, there was no turning back, and the in-game has now more or less become a cascading waterfall that the remaining 20 to 30% of its original population will eventually fall off of now that they are finally reaching the in-game and finding nothing to do, because the only remaining obstacle is dodging what is left on the PvP to get into the spice fields. Now, I genuinely hope that Funcom can turn this around. As they did with Conan, Dune has immense promise, and it undoubtedly is a very fun game. I also don't believe the entire population will leave the game, and I think that there will probably always be a solid 8 to 15,000 players that are on this server. My only concern is whether or not the future roadmap will be sufficient enough to renew interest for returning players, as well as encourage new players to show up and try out the game itself. By looking at this roadmap, I'm a little bit worried about it. Still love the game, but we'll have to see. Thanks for coming, guys, and as always, I'm happy that you guys are here. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Also, remember to like and subscribe. That's the way that we keep this channel growing, and I love making content for you guys. As always, thanks for showing up, and have a great day.